In this mini lecture, we are going to look at Git and GitHub and how to check code into GitHub. And this will be the primary way that we're going to be sharing code. Now, in previous years teaching this class, this was optional material, but given that the remote nature of this class and what the COVID-19 crisis has forced onto us, this now becomes much more important, and we'll actually spend some time early on in the semester to make sure that you can use Git and GitHub because it's software that's designed to allow it to make people who are in different locations to share software, and that's what this COVID situation has forced us into. For your reading, you have wanted to found your first Java book, so maybe that's Thinking Java or one of the other books, and started to read it. You want to start to read, as we talked about last time, about classes and object-oriented design. In addition, you want to, in the Pro Git book, which is a free book that's here, you want to read up through the basics and branching chapters in Git. So I'm assuming that you have a GitHub account. You can sign up for free, which is probably what most of you will want to do. You can make a private repository and then invite me in order to share your homeworks. Or if you're okay with the entire world seeing your code, you can make public repositories. If you're working in groups on code, you can make a repository and share with other people in the class or with anybody else that you want to. I'm assuming that you are able to follow the instructions that are in the ProGit book, and for whatever operating system that you're using, you've installed Git already onto your local operating system. You can follow these directions to create a GitHub repository. So in this case, I made a repository called Demo1. Once you've created this repository, it will have its own page in GitHub. So if I go to my GitHub account here, you can see here all of my repositories. So here's Demo1. What I'm going to do right now is to clone this repository that's up on GitHub onto my local machine. So in order to do that, I click on this code button here, and then I copy the URL. And now the Git that I'm using, this is Git as part of my Windows subsystem for Linux, but you've installed Git on your local system. And you'll know you've installed Git because when you type Git, something happens. You get a help menu. So in order to start this process, I'm going to type git clone, and then I'm going to copy this URL into my command line that's here. Right? So this says git clone, and I do this. And then what's going to happen is Git will take a minute or two. And now I have, on my local system, I have a new folder, which we just installed, called Demo1. And Demo1 has in it a program called helloworld.java, right? And so there is helloworld.java, which right now says hello world, whatever. Okay, so all that's pretty easy. I've just copied from GitHub into my own directory. And so following these directions here. Now, underneath, so it looks like it's pretty easy, right? There's some files up on the internet, right? There is this hello world file that's on the internet, right here, and I just copied it onto my local machine. But Git is actually a little bit more complicated than what you see. So there's sort of three parts of any Git repository. So there's the working directory, right? The working directory here, which is what we can see in our operating system, right? So that's our working directory. Then Git also has this idea of a staging area, and a staging area is where you put files that you want to check into the Git repository, but you don't actually commit them yet. And then finally, there's the Git repository itself. Now, you might think the Git repository is up on GitHub, and there is a copy of the GitHub Git repository on GitHub. But Git is a little bit different from other source control systems if you're used to it, in that Git, every copy of the Git repository is its own complete repository. Right? So it works a little bit like Bitcoin, right? So rather than having a centralized server, every time you copy a repository, you copy the complete repository, including its complete history, right? Then you make changes to your local repository, and then when you're ready to share those changes to the world, you push them back out to GitHub. Right? So it seems like this is pretty simple. I just copy these files, but in fact, what's happened is I've copied the entire repository, including the complete history of the repository. So if I say git log here, these are all the changes to the repository that have already been made, that were made previously, they're not changes that I've made. And I can see these because I've copied the entire repository, including its history, over to my computer. Then I'm going to make changes to my working directory, commit back to my local repository, but that's not going to be reflected on GitHub until I merge the changes into the GitHub repository. So Git is a little bit tricky to learn, but then once you know it, it becomes absolutely essential, and you can't imagine writing code without it. So this just says the same thing. We have our local directory here. if I there are commands that you're going to want to learn. So one of those commands is called git status. So if I say git status here, it tells us right. So if I say git status here, Git tells us, right, we haven't done anything yet. We're up to date. Everything's clean. Right, we haven't made any changes yet. So let's go ahead and go ahead and make a change. Right. So I'm going to just pop open a hello world.java and some text editor. Here I'm using VI. And I'm just going to change this message here so it says now, for example, it's Sunday, like that. So now what's happened, right? My local version says hello world, it's Sunday. But I haven't staged this file yet. I've changed it to my working directory, but I'm a really long way from making that commitment up into Git. So I have this change here in my working directory, but it's only in my working directory. It's not in the repository. And so now when I say git status, right, Git says, okay, you have these changes that you made. You modified hello world.java. And if I say git diff, it will actually show me what the modification is, right? So what's in red is what used to be, and what's in green is now. But again, none of these changes have made it over to the staging area yet. In order to make it to the staging area, I have to use the command git add. So there's the slides showing git status and git status again. In order to commit the changes to the staging area, I have to type git add. So now I say git add hello world.java. And so now when I do this and type git status, so now this has been staged, but has not been yet committed to my local repository. Okay. So when I say git add, I've staged the change here, but I haven't yet committed it to my local repository. In order to commit it to the local repository, I have to use git commit. And so when I say git commit, Git requires that you have a annotation on your commit. So I can make that annotation by just saying it's Sunday, like this. Or if I don't do that, Git will put me in a text editor, and I can say added that it's Sunday. That it is Sunday here. Then now I'm not in my, I can set the text editor, my default text editor to be whatever I want it to be, but I'm in whatever text editor. I think this is Emacs. No, this is not Emacs. I can't even remember what text editor this is. Whatever this default text editor is. Actually, I used to use this for my email editor way back when I was in graduate school, so I should remember what it is, but I can't remember its name, but it doesn't matter. I follow the directions here to exit this thing, Control X and exit, save this, and now this is now committed to my local repository. So now I made the change with the text editor. I said git add to put it in the staging area, and then I said git commit to put it in my local repository. So now when I say git status, okay, there's nothing in my working tree, okay, but these are still local commits, right? This is my local version of the repository. It has not yet been merged with what's up in GitHub. So if I look up in GitHub, and look at Hello World, GitHub doesn't know, I haven't pushed anything to GitHub. GitHub, the rest of the world does not know what I've done yet. So the last thing that I need to do is I need to push that onto GitHub. And the way that I'm going to do that is with the command git push. Okay. And so I'm saying, actually, so if I say git remote here, what this is saying is that the Git knows that the origin is where is the GitHub origin is the repository from which I originally cloned, right? And so in order to push my changes up back to GitHub, I type git push origin, right? Because that's back at GitHub. That's where I'm going. That's the repository that I originated from, that I originally cloned, and master. And that's because I'm on branch master. Now we haven't talked about branches yet. But by default, the branch that you'll be on is master. So I say git push origin master. Now it's going to ask me for a password here. Because while anybody, this is a public repository that anybody can read, write is constrained. So it asks me for the password here. Having done that, right, so I say git push origin master, I type in my password, and now what's going to happen is that when I say git status, is that I'm back to being up to date. Okay? And now when I go to GitHub here, GitHub says it's Sunday, right? So when I look at at GitHub, I have the most recent version here. So now let's look at conflicts and what happens when two different people try to change the repository at the same time, and how those conflicts can be resolved or merged. So one of the nice things about GitHub is you can actually go to GitHub and edit files directly. So if I navigate back to this hello-world.java file that's here, I can actually edit it directly from the GitHub web page. So I can now change this to say, for example, it's Sunday afternoon here, right? Actually, I can just commit these changes, right? So I can put a comment in. It is now Sunday afternoon, and whatever else I want, and I commit these changes. Boom, and so now this is the most recent version. It's Sunday afternoon. But let's say that while I did that, let's say that somebody went and changed the file up on GitHub, someone on the team. But then they did that while I was continuing to work on the code locally. So now I go locally to my text editor, and let's maybe change to say it's Sunday evening, right? Okay, so I say git status. That's fine. I can add it to my local staging area. That's fine. I can commit it to my local repository. That's fine. Sunday evening. So all of that works fine, right? And this works fine because I've just made this change locally. I don't know that somebody else has gone and changed the file that I wanted to that's on the Git GitHub server, right? But now when I try to push this, when I say git push origin master, and I type in again my password because I haven't actually set that, so I have to check in my password again. So now this fails. Okay. So when I try to do this, I have Git senses a conflict, right? My version of the program, which is local to my machine, says it's Sunday evening, but the version that's up on GitHub says it's Sunday afternoon, and Git can't merge the two, right? So in order to resolve this conflict, I have to pull the version that's on the server. There's actually a command called git pull, which is a combination of these git fetch and merge, right? But we'll do this in two steps here. We're going to fetch the version that's on the server, and when you fetch the version that's on the server, it will not yet be merged into your repository. So the information is there, but it's not yet merged into your local working directory. Then we're going to merge into our local working directory. Git will tell us that there's a conflict. We're going to fix that conflict and then put the file back. Right? So this is going to look like this when I say git fetch origin master, like this. Okay, that's fine. That hasn't changed my local. Right, I've just fetched the information that's on the server. I haven't yet merged it into my local working directory. So in order to do that, I'm going to use git merge. And this will indicate that there was a conflict, right? So it says fix the conflicts and then commit the results. So now actually when I look at the file, right, Git has put this information in saying, I don't know what to do, right? Is it Sunday evening or is it Sunday afternoon? So I use my text editor to make the change that I want, right? And so let's say I'm going to make this, it's Sunday evening, really, okay, like that. So I make the change that I want. That's the change that I want. And now this is just a new file, right? It's not staged, right? It's just in my local directory, but it's not staged. So I have to go through the whole staging process, right? I say git add hello-world.java. Now it's staged. I say git commit again to put it into my local directory. And I can Git's here suggested in this text editor. Something that I could say. So I could, it says merging them in. So I can make this a little bit more informative, like just to say a little bit more about what I did. right? So that's the change that that I made. So that is now committed to my local directory. If I say git status, I'm up to date. My local directory is up to date with my local repository, but I haven't yet pushed that into GitHub. So now I say git push origin master, and it will once again ask me for a password because I haven't yet set my credentials, which is something I can do. You don't have to keep typing your password over and over again. You can follow the instructions in the book to set your credentials. I just haven't bothered to do that here. Now, when this this git push has succeeded, right, has updated, and now when I go back to GitHub and click on demo 1 and look at the source demo 1 hello world.java, it's up to the most recent version, right? So so what's just happened is that there was a conflict, right. Again, it's like someone on the team changed the file while I was working on it. There was a conflict. I had to resolve that conflict and then merge it back. So if you guys are working in teams on code, this will happen all the time where two people are changing the file at the same time. And it's the last one in wins, right? But you won't be able to commit your changes until you've dealt with everybody else's changes. And we'll get some practice at this on the lab this week.